Sometimes people don't miss you not because you weren't valuable, but because your presence was too consistent to be noticed. They didn't miss you when you were still hoping, when your heart whispered their name in the middle of silent nights, when you were replaying old conversations, wondering what you could have done differently. No, they didn't miss you then because you were still missing them. As long as your energy was orbiting around their world, they never had to feel your absence. They didn't miss you not until you stopped. Hey folks, imagine this. You're pouring water into a cup with no bottom. You keep pouring and pouring, thinking one day they'll finally feel how much you're giving, but nothing changes. Then one day, you stop. The water no longer flows, and suddenly, they're thirsty. That's how emotional energy works. People get used to your presence. They treat your loyalty like background music. It's only when the song stops that they realize how quiet it feels without you. They didn't miss you while you were still trying, while you were checking your phone, staring at the last message they didn't answer, wondering if they were thinking about you, all the while losing pieces of yourself. But the moment you chose peace over pressure, something changed. Not in them, but in you. You see, we've been fed this lie that if we love hard enough, stay long enough, and hold on tight enough, eventually people will see our worth. But that's not how real respect works. Respect isn't begged for, it's felt in your absence. It's recognized in your silence. It's earned when you stop showing up where you're not appreciated. As Epictetus said, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. And freedom, my friends, is found the day you stop needing someone else to validate your worth. They didn't miss you because they didn't value you. They didn't miss you because they were never forced to live without you. But when your silence became consistent, when your energy stopped knocking at a door that no longer opened, that's when the shift happened. They started to feel the weight of what they lost. They started to replay what they took for granted, and suddenly, your name wasn't just a memory. It became a lesson, a reminder, a regret. Let's be real. This isn't about becoming cold. This isn't about revenge. This is about growing up, emotionally detaching with dignity, and loving yourself enough to walk away without bitterness. You didn't stop missing them out of spite. You did it out of sanity because you finally realized the person you were trying so hard to hold on to wasn't holding on to you. And now they're the ones replaying the silence. They're the ones wondering how you healed without them. But you know the truth. You stopped healing for them and started growing for you. So if you're here right now, nodding your head and feeling that quiet fire inside you rise, write this in the comments. I've stopped missing them. Let the world know. Let yourself know. Let them feel it. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. We've got more soul-shifting wisdom coming, and I promise the journey ahead gets even better. Stay with me, folks. This is just the beginning. Number 1. You were always there, and that's why they couldn't feel the absence. Never make someone a priority when all you are to them is an option. Let's be real. They didn't miss you because they never had to. You were always there, emotionally available, silently showing up, checking on them without being asked, loving them even when they gave you scraps. And the worst part? You thought that was strength. You thought being loyal through silence, distance, and emotional neglect would eventually earn you their recognition. But here's the brutal truth, my friends. People don't miss what's always within reach. They don't value what they believe will never walk away. Imagine a light bulb in a room, always on, always glowing. Nobody thinks about it. It's just there. Until one day, it flickers off. Suddenly, everyone notices the darkness. Suddenly, everyone remembers how comforting that light used to be. That's you. You were the quiet light, the reliable warmth, the steady energy they leaned on without even realizing it. When you finally stopped, when you finally dimmed that light to protect your peace, that's when they started stumbling through the dark, searching. Now, some of you might ask, but why didn't they see it before? Because comfort is blinding. They got used to you carrying the emotional weight. You normalized the effort. You taught them that your love came without limits, without conditions, without pause. And what we normalize, we begin to ignore. That's not your failure, it's human nature. But it is your responsibility to stop being someone's emotional crutch just because they're too lazy to walk on their own. You may be thinking, but if I stop showing up, won't they think I've stopped caring? That's the fear, right? That your silence will be mistaken for apathy. But here's the truth that Stoicism teaches us. Stillness is not the absence of love. It is the presence of self-respect. Seneca said, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage." And I'd argue that sometimes even to walk away is an act of self-love. You didn't disappear to hurt them. You stepped back to heal you. If they confuse that for cruelty, it only proves how little they understood your heart when it was wide open. But don't blame yourself for how long you stayed. Don't shame yourself for being available. That was your honesty, your courage, your capacity to love. And now it's your time to evolve, because the longer you keep pouring into people who never even reach for the cup, the more you drain yourself. And for what? So they can feel secure while you feel small? Let's break the lie that being always available means you're kind. No, it means you're afraid. Afraid that if you stop showing up, they'll forget you. But I promise you this, they don't remember presence, they remember absence. And now that's the weight they carry. That's the silence they didn't expect. It's not loud or dramatic. It doesn't come with slamming doors or final texts. It comes with peace, with composure, with that calm, unshakable strength of a person who finally understands. I don't need to be missed to matter. And look, I know it's hard. It's hard to shift from chasing to choosing, from waiting to walking away, from hoping to healing. But hard doesn't mean wrong. Hard often means real. And when the pain passes, what remains is something far more powerful than being missed, being whole. So if you've been that steady light, that quiet support, that invisible backbone to someone who never truly looked back, this is your turning point. This is where your story bends toward power, because now they don't just notice your absence, they feel it. And you're finally free. Take a breath. Feel that. Now write this in the comments and let it echo into your future. I was always there. Now I'm here for me. Say it with your chest. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you. Stay with me, because in the next section, we're going deeper into the moment they started wondering why the person who used to chase no longer even looks back. You don't want to miss this. Number 2. Missing someone who still misses you. That's not love. That's emotional dependency. Attachment is the great fabricator of illusions. Reality can be attained only by someone who is detached. Let's talk about something that quietly traps so many of us. The idea that if someone also misses you, then what you're feeling must be love. But here's the truth, my friends. Just because two people are emotionally aching doesn't mean they belong together. Missing someone doesn't mean they're good for your growth, and clinging to that shared pain, that's not love. That's emotional dependency dressed up in nostalgia. It's like two people stranded at sea. You're both holding on to the same broken piece of wood, thinking it's keeping you afloat. But it's not. It's just delaying the swim to shore. That piece of wood is your memories, the what-ifs, the almosts, the closeness that never matured into commitment. Instead of swimming to safety, you keep holding on because at least you're not alone, right? But what you don't realize is it's sinking you both. Now, here's the real kicker. Some of you are hoping they miss you just enough to come back, just enough to realize what they lost, just enough to text you, "I miss us." But let's ask the hard question. If they truly valued you, why did it take your absence to trigger their feelings? Why did your silence have to scream what your love once whispered? We romanticize shared pain. We think, well, they're hurting too, so it must have meant something. And maybe it did. Maybe you were real. But Stoicism teaches us something different. Value is not measured by mutual suffering. It's measured by mutual growth. If two people can't elevate each other while together, their emotional connection becomes a loop, a cycle, a trap disguised as fate. Let me break a lie we've been sold. That if someone misses you, it means they're the one. Sometimes people miss the comfort, not the connection. Sometimes they miss your emotional support, not your soul. Sometimes they miss the way you made them feel, not you. And that distinction matters a lot, because when you keep feeding that bond with your thoughts, your time, your hope, you're not healing. You're just romanticizing your own hurt. You're watering weeds, hoping they'll turn into roses. But my friends, no amount of water can change the nature of the seed. You might be afraid right now, afraid to truly let go, afraid that if you stop missing them, you'll lose the last piece of what you had. But ask yourself, what exactly are you holding on to? Are you clinging to the person or the feeling? Or worse, the version of you that only existed when they were in your life? It's hard to admit that what we call love is often just an emotional habit. You miss the validation, the dopamine, the routine. But that's not love, that's dependency. Dependency convinces you to stay emotionally available long after the relationship ended. It keeps you checking their social media, overanalyzing their silence, replaying the memories, hoping the echo of their name still matters. But here's what I want you to hear in your soul. You don't heal by waiting to be missed. You heal by realizing you never needed their acknowledgement to grow. You don't need their confirmation. You don't need their regret. You don't even need their closure. What you need is clarity, and clarity begins the moment you stop needing your pain to be mutual. When you truly detach, it's not that you become cold, it's that you finally stop begging for warmth from someone who kept handing you ice. You stop sitting at a table where love was conditional. You stop proving your worth to someone who only recognized it when it was convenient. If you've been stuck in the cycle of missing someone who might still miss you too, this is your call to step off that emotional carousel. Let go, not because they don't matter, but because you matter more. Write this in the comments if this message hit home. Missing me is not enough. Say it and mean it. Show the universe you're done settling for recycled pain dressed up as love. And don't go anywhere, because next we're talking about the exact moment they started wondering where your energy went. When your absence became louder than your words ever were. Trust me, you'll want to hear this one. Stay with me. Number 3. The day you stopped hoping was the day they started wondering. You only lose what you cling to. There's always that one moment, quiet, subtle. It doesn't come with fireworks or a grand emotional breakdown. It's not loud, it's not messy, it's still. It's a whisper in your soul that says, enough. Enough waiting, enough hoping, enough trying to decode silence like it's some kind of hidden love letter. And my friends, that moment, that's when the real shift begins. That's the day they start to wonder, not because you disappeared, but because you finally stopped hoping. You see, hoping for someone to come back is a lot like staring at a locked door, waiting for it to open itself. You jiggle the handle every now and then, peek under the frame, check if there's light coming through the crack. And the saddest part? You convince yourself the door is still yours just because it was once open. But that door, if it wanted you on the other side, wouldn't be shut in the first place. Let's be honest here, folks. For a long time, your hope wasn't just about love. It became a habit, a routine. Wake up, wonder what they're thinking. Go to sleep, wonder if they'll miss you tomorrow. Every little thing felt like a sign, a post, a story view, a song lyric. Your mind turned into a detective, building castles on maybes and what-ifs. But none of that was real. It was all you giving meaning to breadcrumbs that should have never been enough to feed your heart in the first place. Here's where it gets interesting. They were never forced to think deeply about you. Why would they? You were still hoping, still energetically holding space, still emotionally lingering in their world, even if they left yours. Hope is a bridge, and you were the only one standing on it. But then you stopped. You didn't announce it. You didn't post a quote about moving on. You just stopped searching for meaning where none existed. You stopped refreshing their page, stopped waiting on replies that weren't coming. And in doing that, you did something powerful. You broke the emotional contract they thought you'd never tear up. Now they're the ones wondering why your energy doesn't show up in their notifications, wondering why you no longer take the bait, wondering how someone who once hoped so hard could now walk so calmly. The answer? Detachment. Not bitterness, not revenge, but inner peace. You didn't stop hoping because you stopped caring. You stopped hoping because you finally started healing. Deep down, you realized that hope, when it's one-sided, isn't noble. It's heavy, it's exhausting, and it keeps you stuck in a waiting room where the other person never had an appointment. People don't notice your value when you're still trying to prove it, but silence and detachment create space. And in that space, they finally hear what your words could never say, that you're done chasing, that your energy is no longer available to be toyed with, that you've outgrown the need to be seen by someone who refused to look when it mattered. Here's the Stoic twist. When you stop hoping, you return to yourself. You pick up your power from the places you left it. You start watering your own roots instead of chasing empty clouds. You learn that self-respect isn't found in their return. It's found in your release. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." And that's what you did. You took the power back from the things you couldn't control and planted it in the one place you could, your own mind. So if you're standing at that edge now, where hope is fading and clarity is rising, let it happen. Let the doors stay shut. Let the silence echo, not because you're numb, but because you're finally alive. In that stillness, something amazing begins. You stop hoping for a return and start building a future where their presence is no longer a requirement for your peace. If you feel this in your chest right now, write this in the comments as your declaration. I stopped hoping and I started healing. Say it, mean it, let the world know the shift has begun. And don't go anywhere, folks, because next we're stepping into the moment. Your absence became a mirror, one they didn't want to look into. It's about to get even deeper, so stay with me. Number 4, your absence became the mirror they were afraid to look into. The worst part of holding on to memories is not the pain, it's the loneliness of it. Memories need to be shared. Your presence was soft, consistent, steady, and because of that, it became invisible. They never had to look too closely. They never had to question if you'd be there because you always were. You filled the spaces they didn't even know existed. You made silence feel safe. But the moment you withdrew, that's when everything changed. Not just for them, but for you. You see, folks, your absence didn't just leave a void. It created a mirror. And that mirror doesn't lie. It shows them everything they chose not to see when you were standing right in front of them. Heart open, effort given, energy offered without price. And now they're looking into that reflection, realizing they weren't the hero of the story. They were just the recipient of your presence. Without you, that story feels empty. It's like walking into a room that was always warm, only to notice how cold the air feels once the fire goes out. They didn't notice the heat before, it was just there. But now the cold creeps in, and suddenly they're looking around, asking, why does it feel so different? That difference, my friends, is you. This is where reality gets uncomfortable for them, Because your absence doesn't come with noise. It doesn't slam doors or leave dramatic messages. No, it comes with grace. It comes with detachment. And that scares people more than anger ever could, because anger still holds on. Detachment is done. Now they're left to look into the silence and see something they never wanted to face. How they treated someone who only ever showed up for them. The mirror your absence creates doesn't flatter, it reflects. It shows them the ignored messages, the cold replies, the unreciprocated energy. It shows them the slow unraveling of someone who only wanted to be seen. When that image finally settles in their mind, it haunts them, not because you vanished, but because they never thought you could. Now I know some of you are sitting there thinking, I didn't want this to happen. I didn't want to pull away, and I get it. You didn't detach to make them hurt. You detached because staying started to hurt you. That's what Stoicism teaches us. You are not obligated to stay in spaces where your presence is taken for granted. You're not weak for walking away. You're wise. Marcus Aurelius said, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change. But I must be convinced, not by intimidation, but by reason." Sometimes the most convincing argument is your absence, not to intimidate, not to prove a point, but because you realize no amount of presence could make someone see your worth if they refuse to look. Here's the wildest part. They don't know what to do with the new version of you, the one who doesn't text first, the one who doesn't orbit around their moods, the one who no longer exists for their convenience. It unsettles them, not because they want you back necessarily, but because the mirror of your absence is forcing them to face who they were when they had you. For some people, that reflection is ugly. It shows entitlement, immaturity, emotional laziness. None of those things feel good to admit. So instead of taking responsibility, they'll scroll through old pictures, play the victim in their head, blame the silence instead of owning their actions. But deep down, they know you didn't disappear for no reason. Now you have a choice, my friends. You can wait for them to fix their reflection, or you can keep walking and let them sit with it. If you're on that path right now, choosing growth over guilt, take a second and write this in the comments. My absence became the truth. Let them feel it. Let the world know. Let you know. Because in the next section, we're diving even deeper into the part of the journey where you finally learn that emotional availability isn't weakness, but it becomes weakness when you keep giving it to people who never deserve the key. Stay close, folks. You're becoming stronger with every quiet step. Number 5. Emotional availability isn't weakness, but unreciprocated access is. Don't make yourself too available. It's not loyalty, it's emotional slavery. Let's make something very clear, my friends. Being emotionally available isn't a flaw. It's not a weakness. It's a strength, a rare kind in a world where everyone is trying to act unbothered, unreadable, detached. Being someone who feels deeply, who shows up, who loves openly, that takes courage. But here's the catch. Even strength, when given to the wrong hands, can be used against you. Emotional availability isn't the problem. Unreciprocated access is. Giving someone a front row seat to your heart when they're not even willing to step into the room with respect, that's the real betrayal. Not what they did, but what you kept allowing. Not how they treated you, but how you kept hoping they'd change. Imagine this. You have a beautiful home, warm, safe, filled with comfort, and you keep the door open, not because you're naive, but because you believe in connection, in goodness. You invite someone in, they come and go as they please. Sometimes they stay, sometimes they disappear. They never lock the door behind them. They never say thank you. They treat your home like a hotel, temporary, convenient, and disposable. And the saddest part? You keep fluffing the pillows, lighting the candles, preparing the space, just in case they decide to stay. That's what emotional unavailability feels like when it's one-sided. and it slowly starts to eat away at your self-respect. You begin to question if you're asking for too much. You wonder if you're being too sensitive. You tell yourself, well, at least they're still around, like their presence is a gift, not a choice. But folks, let's break this lie right now. Access to your heart should never be free to those who offer nothing in return. The Stoics weren't cold, they weren't heartless. They just mastered the art of placing boundaries where energy leaks. Seneca once wrote, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you." And what improves you isn't someone who triggers your anxiety. It's someone who meets your emotional depth with stability, with presence, with effort. When you're emotionally available to someone who is inconsistent, you become their mirror. They test their own reflection through you. They lean on you when it's convenient, vanish when it's not, and come back when they need a fix. Because you care, because your loyalty runs deep, you allow it. You hope this time will be different. You confuse emotional openness with emotional sacrifice, and that's where the pain starts to multiply. Now, let's get uncomfortable. Why do we keep giving access to people who don't earn it? Because we're afraid of the silence that follows disconnection. Because we think availability makes us more lovable. Because deep down, we hope that if we just stay open long enough, they'll finally walk in and stay. But that's not love. That's emotional gambling. You keep pulling the slot machine handle, hoping for a jackpot, when all you're doing is losing time, peace, and self-worth. It's time to flip the narrative. Your emotional availability is a gift, not a weakness. But gifts should go to those who appreciate them, not those who treat them like background noise. You are not a backup plan. You are not emotional Wi-Fi to reconnect to when life gets lonely. You are a human being with depth, value, and presence. The day you realize that is the day the dynamic changes. When you stop being easily available, you start becoming deeply respected. When you start requiring emotional consistency, you stop attracting emotional chaos. When you start protecting your peace like it's sacred, the wrong people stop showing up and the right ones learn they need to earn their way in. If you've ever felt like your kindness was mistaken for weakness, like your openness was turned into a revolving door, this is your sign to shut it. Not in anger, but in self-respect, in dignity, in growth. If this section hit your heart, write this in the comments as a vow to yourself. My access is earned. Say it, own it, show the world you've stepped into your worth. Because next, we're diving into what happens when you stop checking on them, when your absence starts turning into a question mark in their mind, and the warmth you once gave starts to feel like winter without it. Stay locked in, folks. You're becoming a fortress, quiet, powerful, and untouchable. Number 6. When you stop checking on them, their world felt colder. You don't have to cut them off. Just stop watering the connection and watch how fast it dies. You used to check on them, didn't you? Quietly, subtly, not always through words, but through energy. A glance at their story, a scroll through their page, a thought here and there, wondering if they're doing okay, if they're still thinking about you, if the connection still meant something. You weren't trying to chase, you were trying to care. But care without reciprocity, that's emotional erosion. One day, you stopped. It wasn't dramatic. You didn't slam your emotional door and shout, "I'm done." You just didn't check. You didn't ask. You didn't look. You didn't wonder, because what was once love started to feel like leakage, like your energy was seeping out through invisible cracks, going to someone who never truly caught it. When you stopped checking on them, something shifted, not just in your world, but in theirs. It got colder. You see, your energy was a blanket, a soft, steady warmth they didn't even know they were wrapped in. Just like people don't notice the heat until winter hits, they didn't feel your presence until it was gone. You used to soften their day without even trying. Your loyalty, your attention, your subtle emotional presence, it was always there and they never questioned it. But now the silence hits different. Now they check their phone and see nothing. No familiar name lighting up the screen, no likes, no comments, no energy being silently passed through digital threads. It's empty. And that absence, that quiet withdrawal, it stings. Not because you punished them, but because you finally chose peace over performance. The reason this part hits so hard is because it's the moment they become the observer, the one sitting in silence, the one watching, the one wondering. They don't know how to process it because for so long, they thought you'd always be there, orbiting their emotional gravity. But the moment you stopped spinning around them, they felt the drop in temperature. Now, some of you might ask, was it wrong of me to care so much? No, my friends, it was beautiful, rare. It meant your heart still worked in a world that teaches numbness. But what wasn't right was caring alone, carrying all the weight of the connection while they showed up half-hearted, half-present, half-invested. You were showing up like it mattered. They were showing up like it was optional. That's why the silence hit so hard when you stopped, because it wasn't silence. It was clarity, the kind that doesn't come from conversations, but from absence. From the moment you stopped checking, they were forced to sit with a truth they had avoided. You were always the one keeping this thing alive, and without your fire, it turns cold, fast. The Stoics teach us that we must control where our energy flows. Marcus Aurelius said, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do, only what you do." When you applied that, when you stopped doing for them and started choosing you, that's when they began to notice the loss. Because it wasn't just about your presence, it was the care behind it. That care, that kind of warmth, can't be faked, it can't be replaced. It's not something they can pick up from someone new. It's unique. It's yours. Let's be real. They might not say anything. Their ego might stay quiet. But the shift is there. You've created emotional winter, not by turning cold, but by stepping away. And now the warmth they used to ignore is gone. And that is what they miss. So if you're in that space right now, where you're no longer checking, no longer reaching, no longer giving quiet love to someone who only noticed when it was convenient, this is your power. Don't doubt it, don't second guess it. You didn't lose them, you just stopped holding the space they were never ready to fill. Write this in the comments if this part hit home. I stopped checking, I found peace. Say it out loud, claim it, let it echo. Stay with me because next, we're going even deeper into what happens when detachment isn't about indifference, but about emotional maturity. You've been evolving, and it's time the world sees what that really means. Keep walking, folks. You're becoming something rare. Number 7. Detachment is not coldness, it's emotional maturity. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you stop trying to force someone to. Let's clear this up once and for all. Detachment is not coldness, it's not cruelty, it's not bitterness in disguise. Detachment is what happens when you finally outgrow the need to prove your worth to people who never took the time to understand it in the first place. It's what emotional maturity looks like when you've tried everything, cared deeply, gave consistently, and realized none of that could make someone stay who didn't want to. You see, my friends, for the longest time, you were all in. You were emotionally present, fully available. You showed up, you listened. You hoped. Because of that, you believed that somehow your effort would tip the scale, that one day they'd wake up and get it, that your love would reach them. But what no one tells you is that emotional maturity isn't about holding on tighter. It's about knowing when to let go with grace. Imagine holding sand in your hand. If you squeeze too hard, it slips through your fingers. If you hold too loosely, the wind takes it away. But when you're emotionally mature, you understand this. You can hold space for someone without gripping onto them. You can care without controlling. You can walk away while still wishing them well. That's what detachment is. It's strength, not spite. Society has conditioned us to believe that detachment means you don't feel anything, that if you stop reaching out, you've become cold, that if you no longer react, you're heartless. That's the lie we need to destroy today. Because here's the truth: emotional detachment is what happens when you felt everything and finally choose peace. It's not that you don't care anymore, it's that you no longer allow your caring to be a leash around your neck. You've learned to separate your peace from their presence. You've learned that your worth doesn't depend on being missed, chased, or even understood. Some people think silence means you're over it. Others think it means you're angry. But silence, when it comes from someone who once poured their soul into the connection, means one thing. It means they've grown. It means they've stepped into emotional clarity. It means they've realized that their love is not supposed to be a performance. It's a gift. When that gift goes unappreciated, it's not withdrawn in rage. It's simply no longer available. You want to know when they start noticing your value. Not when you're crying, not when you're pleading, not when you're over-explaining your heart. It's when you've gone quiet, not to punish, but because your soul finally decided to rest. When your energy no longer dances to the rhythm of their confusion, that's when detachment becomes loud, louder than any goodbye you could have spoken. Detachment is also the ultimate power shift, because the moment you stop needing them to respond, to apologize, to validate your feelings, that's when you become untouchable. Not because you don't feel, but because you feel responsibly. You've learned to protect your peace like sacred ground. And trust me, they feel that shift. They may not admit it, their ego might hold them back. But the absence of your emotional chaos, the lack of your reaction, that silence, it haunts them. You were once the open book, now you're a closed chapter. Not because of malice, but because the story was never read with the care it deserved. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." That includes people, their moods, their choices, their silence. Emotional maturity is understanding that your peace is not up for negotiation. So if you're walking in this season right now, where you've stopped explaining, stopped reacting, stopped handing out free access to your emotional core, don't let anyone guilt you into thinking you're cold. You're not cold, you're clear. And clarity feels like silence to people who once fed off your overexertion. Write this in the comments if you feel this deep in your soul. I'm not cold, I'm clear. Let them hear it, let you feel it. Because this version of you, the one grounded in wisdom, not wounded in reaction, that's someone they'll never forget. Stay with me, my friends, because next, we're stepping into what happens when your evolution becomes louder than any argument, when your growth becomes the echo they can't escape. It's about to get real, so let's keep going. Number 8. You didn't stop loving, you just started loving yourself more. You can't pour from an empty cup. Take care of yourself first. Let's set the record straight, my friends. You didn't stop loving them. You didn't wake up one day and flip a switch. Your heart didn't suddenly go numb. What really happened is this. You stopped abandoning yourself just to prove your love for someone else. You didn't stop loving them. You just started loving you more. And that right there is the beginning of everything they never saw coming. Because for the longest time, you made them your home. You gave them the keys to places in your soul even you hadn't fully explored. You let them in. You showed up when you weren't okay. You held space for them when they didn't even ask. You made sacrifices, excuses, adjustments, and they got used to it. They thought your love came with no expiration, no boundary, no standard. But here's the truth. Even the strongest love will walk away when it starts costing peace. You didn't stop loving, you just stopped leaking. You stopped draining your energy into a black hole of almosts and maybes. You stopped playing the emotional ATM, spending all your patience, your presence, your affection, without ever getting deposits in return. And that shift didn't come from anger, it came from awakening. One day, you looked in the mirror and saw someone tired, someone overextended, someone who had given so much to keep someone else emotionally comfortable that they forgot what comfort even looked like for themselves. That's when everything changed. It's like watering a plant in someone else's garden while yours withers behind you. You thought if their flowers bloomed, maybe they'd turn around and help you grow, but they never did. So you picked up the watering can and turned it back toward your own roots. That wasn't selfish, that was sacred. Let's be honest, at first it felt wrong, didn't it? Setting boundaries when you used to be wide open, saying no when your default was yes, choosing solitude over someone who couldn't choose you back. It felt like betrayal, like you were giving up. But with time, you started to see it differently. It wasn't giving up, it was growing up. Because real love doesn't mean losing yourself in someone else's emotional indecision. It doesn't mean shrinking to be more digestible. It doesn't mean making your self-worth dependent on their moods, their texts, their validation. That's not love. That's emotional imprisonment. When you realize that, you didn't stop loving, you just started loving smarter. Now here's the part they never expected. You didn't leave angry, you left aware. When someone walks away without bitterness, without begging, without trying to be noticed, that silence hits different. It doesn't echo revenge. It echoes respect, not just for them, but for yourself. That's what makes it so loud. Marcus Aurelius said, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." That's where you found your power, in your own way of thinking, in realizing that the love you gave them wasn't wasted, but it's now being returned to the one who needed it most, you. Here's the truth. You can still love someone and walk away. You can still care and keep your distance. You can still remember the good times and not want them back. That's what real maturity is. It's when you stop needing to rewrite the story and start writing your next chapter without their name in the title. They thought your silence meant apathy, but what it really meant was, I've chosen myself this time, and there's nothing louder than that. Because when someone who used to love you out loud starts loving themselves in silence, that's when people realize what they lost. Not because you vanished, but because you finally came home to yourself. So if you're walking that path now, choosing your peace, your voice, your worth over someone who couldn't meet you halfway, take a moment and type this in the comments. I love me more. Say it without shame, without apology. Say it as a declaration, because that love, that's the kind that never leaves you, never ghosts you, never disappoints. It's loyal, it's steady, and it's yours. So here's the truth, my friends. What they miss now isn't just your presence. It's the version of you they thought would always be there. But you've changed, you've grown, you've reclaimed your energy, your peace, your self-worth. And that's the kind of shift that echoes long after silence. Let this be your reminder. You didn't lose them, you found you. If this message resonated with your soul, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs this, and subscribe for more powerful truths. In the comments, drop this affirmation. I choose me every time. Stay strong, stay grounded, and remember that your journey is just beginning.